Okay, you're all set, Mickey.
Good morning. This is the December 17th, 2020 meeting of the Marquette Area Wastewater Treatment Facility Advisory Board. Due to absences, I, Margaret Brum, will for the first time chair this meeting. If you have any questions or concerns, raise your hand and I'll call on you. It's not the first meeting I've chaired, but it's the first time I've chaired this meeting. Pam, could we have a roll call, please, to see who is present?
Hay?
I'm sorry?
Chairman Brum?
Chairman Brum is here.
Can you hear her very well?
Yeah.
Mr. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Bodines?
Here.
Mr. Newman?
Here.
Okay, do we have enough people here to constitute a quorum by our bylaws?
Yes.
Yes, we do. We have three participants, so
Okay, and we have a representative from the city and from the 2 townships.
yes.
Two from
Okay.
the city.
2 from the city. So we verified that we have enough people here for a quorum. Joe, is this your first meeting of the Wastewater Advisory Board?
Yes, it is.
All right, we will follow the agenda very closely, and if you have any questions, like I said, just raise your hand. The meeting has been called to order. We had a roll call, members present. Could I have a motion to excuse Brad for personal matters today?
I'll make that motion.
Harold, could you second that motion,
I'll
please?
second it.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Can I ask a question? If you're
All in
not-
favor of excusing Brad from this meeting today for personal matters?
do we have to excuse him? What's the point of doing that?
I believe when a meeting attendee is absent, we should note that he is excused in his absence.
Pam agrees.
Okay, so we have a motion and I heard 3 ayes. Joe, did I hear your aye?
Yes, you did.
Okay, the motion passes, Pam, 4 to nothing.
Thank you.
All right, the agenda has been sent out by Pam for approval. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'm Harold Hayes. I make a motion to approve the agenda for November or December 17th. I'm sorry, November 19th.
All right, can I have a second on that motion, please?
I'll support it.
Okay, all in favor, please say yes.
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 Any negative votes? Motion passes 4-0, Pam.
Thank you.
Okay, the prior minute meetings were sent out with the agenda. This is the minutes from November 19th, 2020. Has everyone had a chance to look through them? Harold, were you satisfied with the summary of your economic analysis, which was on the bottom paragraph on page 1?
Yes. The only thing I would note is that I think what we need to do at some point is, well, yes, I'm happy with that.
All right, would you like to make an agenda item for some future meeting that we revisit these analysis that you've done relative to the project?
Not at this point. I mean, that could be brought up later.
All right, does anyone else have any comment about the minute meetings for the November 19th meeting, excuse me? Okay, I'm not seeing any comments. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the November 19th meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Leonard. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
All right. Pam, do we need a roll call vote or can this just be voice vote?
What do you think, Mark?
I think it can just be a roll call
Yeah.
Let's do a roll call
or a
vote. on
voice. I don't think it matters.
I don't think it matters.
I don't think it
All right,
matters.
let's just do a voice vote then on approving the meetings. Everybody in minutes, everybody in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Pam, the approval of the prior meeting minutes passes 4-0.
Thank you.
All right, we're on item number 3, the financial report. And this is where I miss Gary the most. He used to come in and tell us everything was going to be fine. Mark, can I ask you to go through this with us briefly? And as usual,
Sure.
the thing that changes the most is purchase power and other revenue from trucked wastewater. Can you address those issues?
Yeah, correct. First of all, I'd just like to say that Gary passed this along and he didn't make any note of anything of concern.
I saw that.
Obviously, we're 2 months into the fiscal year, just over 16%. You can see other revenue is at 32% of what we budgeted for, but we were expecting that as we generally go conservative on what we're going to be taking in. It's usually the same cast of characters, and purchase power is trending well. But the only thing that really jumps out is the vehicle, equipment rental, and that'll trend out over time, and we should be within budget. I don't see any issues elsewhere within the report.
Did we have to rent a special vehicle to move equipment this month?
No, not this month. Some of that initial cost there is we took a lot of sand in from the MDOT project, cleaning out their storm sewers. So we
Okay,
had to rent dump trucks from Motor Pool. Obviously, it's an hourly wage. We have to pay for that piece of equipment to them to move that sand to the landfill. And there was quite a bit of it.
okay, this is
But that cost was factored into what we charge for them to dump it here also.
when you rent a dump truck from the rest of the city, do you have to return it all swept out? Or is that part of the rental
We
process?
try to pride ourselves in returning the equipment cleaner than it was.
Okay,
That is an ongoing issue, obviously. Some guys over there really take care of their equipment. Some of the others, not so much.
all right,
And some of the equipment gets shared like snow plows, so that
Yeah.
can be an issue.
all right, does
But we like to
anyone-
stay on their good side, so.
I'm sorry about the noise on my computer, but with the sound up this much, every time I get an email, it's registering. Does anyone have any comments, questions, or concerns about the financial report? Leonard?
Nope.
Harold?
Mark, on the purchase natural gas, is that 0 just because we haven't caught up with the billing?
Purchase natural gas. Yeah, what happened is that since the last report, we haven't received the newest bill yet. Hasn't been processed, I'm guessing.
We've had some internal changes with the accounts payable clerk too, so there's some adjustments going on there, I believe.
I'll send an email out. I'll ask Gary about that specifically to address that. And I can get back to the board later today.
I'd appreciate it, because anytime you don't get an invoice you're expecting, it always tends to jump up at the last minute and you don't expect it. Mark?
Yeah, we've definitely been burning natural gas, so there is going to be bills there.
All
Sorry
right,
about
I looked through this last night and I didn't have any overall concerns. I note that you're one employee short, that an employee was terminated. Is that going to show up in the wages for next month that didn't get paid?
Yeah, yeah, we are in the process. We have made offers to 2
Okay.
employees now. The city manager gave us permission to go ahead and fill that surprising second opening.
Okay,
So the offers have been made. One guy is going to be starting January 4th, and the other operator needs to get his physical and then probably put his 2 weeks in once he gets that clearance. So I would expect probably sometime in mid-January we'll be fully staffed again. So
so
yeah, there'll be some savings there.
it's not going to be tremendous, but it's going to be like 2 operators for 1 month that you won't be paying.
Right, and the first operator, we haven't been paying that position since July 1st. It's been open.
Okay, all right.
So we will have gone almost exactly 6 months with that position open. Obviously, there was some increased overtime cost because we were shorthanded, but
Mhm.
there definitely would be some savings there.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind, Pam, could you make a note on the next financial report to see if that was reflected at all? Because that's a one-off. Joe and Leonard, you know, we don't normally have open positions for that long here. So that's gonna be a reduction in wages that's not gonna permeate through the rest of the year. I used the wrong word, permeate. I'm an engineer. It's not going to continue through the rest of the fiscal year. Okay, I reviewed the numbers, and anytime I get numbers from Gary, I usually don't have any problem with them, and that's how I saw it today. Does anyone else have any comments, questions, or concerns about the financial report before we accept it? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised. Harold? Harold?
Yes. Hello?
Any questions?
No.
Okay. That item, agenda item has been discussed and the financial report has been reviewed in detail. Mark, I believe you're up for the solids handling project.
Yeah, I just want to give you guys an update. Like I said, everything's preliminary here. We're in the initial stages, but we are moving along. We have weekly meetings with our engineering staff or team. And we're working through a lot of, every week we find something that we're like, wow, you know, we probably would have missed that and we would have found it during construction. So very, very good process. I just wanted to share some conceptual drawings. See if I can do this here. Just to give you an idea of what we're looking at. Okay, the general overview of the plant here. Coming down the driveway, if you look, you can see building 110. That would be the new septic receiving station. And there's many benefits of locating it there. It's closest to the pipe. There's a tunnel right here that has our pipe gallery, that has all the biosolids, all the sludges going to the different digesters from there. So we'll be able to have a shorter run. And then we can also tap into our boiler system, and there's several other benefits. One of the negatives of having it in that spot, we have our waste gas burners right about here. That thing has to have a 50-foot clearance to meet code. So we're gonna have to bump that out into the island here. So we're not gonna be able to park here anymore, and we're gonna lose the last tree we have. This island's gonna get kind of tore up anyways.
Mark, what do
Just
you
to
mean
make
that
it easier for the-
you have to have it so far from what?
It cannot be anywhere 50 feet from any building, any
This is a
structure,
septic
or
receiving station has to be that far?
no. It's the waste gas burner.
Oh, okay.
The waste gas burner currently is located right where we want to put the septic
Okay,
receiving
yeah,
station.
right.
So you can see the black lines in the ground here. Those are just going to be pipes underground. This 200 building here would be our new biosolids or solids handling building. I think if I remember right from last week, they're talking about having a separation here with the cake storage area. There'd be a conveyor to convey that material into this, so we don't have to handle it as much. This, conceptually, the way it's laid out is about the same size as the one we have. I've asked them if we can fit it into the budget. I'd like to make this as big as possible. With the technology we're looking at to start handling the biosolids in this new building, it's going to be a little bit more efficient. So I'd like to maximize that use. And then one of the biggest issues we're dealing with is all the water that comes off of that press once we're running it, how to convey it back to the treatment plant. They initially wanted to run it over here, which feeds into our Vactor. This is our Vactor pad 810. Into this 900 building, we have an equalization tank here. This is a sludge storage tank that we can decant off of into this equalization spot right here. And that feeds into this lift station and convey it back into the plant. But the line that runs through here is old. We get a lot of material from that Vactor pad, sand and rocks, and we've had a lot of issues. So we have some serious concerns about that. So we're looking at maybe redoing all the piping inside the plant, and they would run a camera down that line to inspect it. Or we might have to just go ahead and add another lift station right outside this building and convey it back through this way. Go to some of the, let's see, 54. Actually 55. Okay, this is going to be the septic receiving station. This would be ground level. You have a pad here, so if there's any spills, it would be caught. Control panel, so it'll be all automated. Our operators won't have to deal with it. They'll just come in, punch in their code, swipe their card, whatever, make their connection. There'll be a flow meter. We'll have a heavy object trap here to get rid of any heavy rocks, that sort of stuff that makes its way into septic tanks and porta potties and stuff like that. Then we're looking at several pieces of equipment here, but basically they're all the same concept. It's a screen, a rotary screen where the material would go through. The clean water, not the clean water, but the heavy objects would be stuck on the screen. The screen would move up. The material, the septage then that has been cleaned up would fall down into the wet wells below. And then all that garbage would be conveyed, cleaned up a little bit, compressed, and put in a baggie system and then off to the landfill. I have an electrical room here and some other equipment. On the wish list is an odor control system because we're concerned about odors. And that's if we can fit it in the budget. If it doesn't make the budget, we'll go without the odor control, but we're going to have it designed that we could easily put it in later if the neighbors start complaining.
What would that consist of, Mark? Is that
Kind of
for-
what we have at our Lake Street lift station, just an
is that
activated
for-
carbon
You're cleaning up the air for in the building, basically.
right off the wet wells. Yeah. So all that material would come in, and then before we ventilate those wet wells, it would pass through this odor control system.
Right.
And this is what we have at our lift station on Lake Street by the Coast Guard station.
Yep.
And it actually works really well.
Is that a carbon?
So then we'd
filter?
have a covered stairway, enclosed stairway, I should say, going down to the basement. So we'd have 2 wet wells here. It would be mixed by a large bubble aeration mixing system, which initially I wasn't really fond of, but as I've learned more about it, there's not a lot of maintenance with it. It does a good job, and it uses the least amount of energy, which is what we're looking for. So we'd have the option of, if we have a truck come in and it's full of grease, we could dump it into whichever tank we want. These tanks are going to have boiler water going through the walls so we can heat it to liquefy that grease. And then we'll have the pumps here that can go ahead and pump it either directly to the digesters, or we could feed it directly to the head of the treatment plant. And my next note is, this is going to be the solids handling room. We're going to design it so we could put a future belt filter press here. We're not going to obviously look for that now because these pieces of equipment are $300,000 to $400,000. You know, we can get by with one because we have the other one as a backup. But we are going to design it for a second one if we feel the need for it. We're looking at a little bit different technology than what we have, our current belt filter press. This is something relatively new that I just learned about. It's called a tower press. It's kind of the same concept, but it's much more efficient. You can get a drier cake. It's also about $100,000 more. So we're kind of looking at the cost benefit analysis of that. But we think that that's going to be the route to go.
What kind of?
We have a conveyor system then that would take the cake right off of there and put it right into the cake storage. Currently, the way the system is, the cake comes off the machine, and as it builds up, we have to be there with the front end loader and pick it up and move it across the parking lot. So this will be much more efficient for us. Yes, go ahead.
So this particular one is going to be conveyed, all the solids that can be conveyed to the storage area. Is that, how are we going to fill up the other storage area? You're just going to use the other belt press?
Yes.
At that point? Okay.
Yep. And then the worst case, Harold, scenario would be if, let's just say that other belt press had a catastrophic failure or something like that. We still could have the option of trucking it across the site, which is definitely not the preferable option. But I mean, yes, we could do that.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, my goal here would be to use this for basically all of summer. We would only use this press to do the cake. Hoping that our cake storage is going to be big enough that we can get through most of winter. The longer we can go, the better.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would use the other cake storage as, you know, the final phase.
Yeah. What kind of, you said this is going to be an improved percent solids on the cake?
Yeah, they're looking at like, I think a 2 to 2.5% generally they see off of it. Like I said, this is conceptual. This hasn't been totally decided. We looked at several different technologies. There's centrifuges out there.
Right.
There was a screw press, which really looked pretty neat to me. It's a little bit higher capital investment. It takes up a lot less room. But the negative aspect of that, it uses a lot more polymer.
Mhm.
So we keep going back to the belt filter press, and
So,
it's either going to be this tower press probably, or something similar to what we have right now.
so your existing solids are like 13% or so. I mean, when you,
Yeah, on a
so you're
good
going to
day,
go
I
up
think
another,
it's 14.
it's going to increase that by 2 or 3%, you said? Is that
Yep,
okay? So you're going to get up to like
that's what they're
17,
looking at.
18.
And then also what we're looking at, we're going to start adding ferric chloride to the anaerobic digesters now. And what they're finding is generally a normal wastewater treatment plant like ours that doesn't have biological phosphorus removal, you can see 20% cake coming off your belt filter press. But for whatever reason, BioP plants, because somehow that changes the mechanisms of the bugs or whatever, you just don't get that. So by adding ferric chloride to the digester, it's going to help improve that. So we might even see an improvement off of both presses from what we're expecting. That's the hope. And there's several other benefits of adding the ferric chloride to the digester. It's going to cut down on the phosphorus load coming off this press, the filtrate. And it's also going to help us with our H2S concentrations in the digesters. So it's really for the cost of putting the equipment in and feeding it, there's a huge benefit there.
I have some
I
questions.
can kind of show you. Let me show you one more picture here before we. This is kind of a picture that press. Currently, this first belt here on our press is up high, and then everything falls down and it runs through the series of belts on the bottom. So with this technology, it runs across the bottom, and then it goes up to the top, and then it runs through. So it's a little bit different. We haven't seen this yet. At some point, we're going to get out, and there's several of them in Wisconsin. We're going to go down there and do a road trip and talk to the operators that run it, inspect it, look at it, before we make the decision that we want to go forward with that. And we may even bid this out, as an alternate, and just bid it as a regular belt filter press, and have it as an alternate, and then make that decision how it comes in, whether we want to go forward with it.
Are you ready for questions now?
Yes, anytime. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I didn't want to interrupt, but it was getting very specific and I've been making notes. I heard you say that in order to construct this new facility, one of the older trees on the property has to be taken down.
Well, it was a tree that was planted in 1979, and it's nothing but it's a pine tree. And actually, it drops so many pine cones that it's kind of hard on our mower. So I don't think the guys are going to miss it.
What I was
And we can always plant a tree to replace it.
What I was going to request as part of your process, consult with the city arborist if that position has been filled, and see if you can replace that one tree, maybe with up to 3 more trees that in a more desirable location that are more beneficial to the plant. They don't have to drop pine cones, but just so that when you're presenting this project, that we don't get hung up by someone saying you killed a tree and you didn't do anything about it. You can say, oh, we replanted 3 other trees and we made a windbreak here, or we did something to enhance the overall reality. Because in terms of a green project, this sounds really green, except when I hear that a tree had to be taken down, it's like, and not all trees are equal. It doesn't have to be a very expensive
This is a UP,
tree. Harold, I know it's
we can look at that when the time comes.
Yeah, I just made a note on that. I noticed that you're going to rely upon the people coming up to connect their own pipes to your facilities. Are you budgeting in a permanent sanitizer station there so that the people understand that they have to clean
we'll have something there. We want to make this as user-friendly as possible. I did reach out to the septic haulers, and I think their reaction was pretty good. They're pretty excited that we're looking at this, and they actually had a few good comments, things to think about when we design it. So yeah, I think we're going to get a lot of use, and yes, we want to make it user friendly. We want them to come here. That's
Well,
the goal.
I know that this isn't going to be done in the next 6 months, and that
No,
maybe
it's not
by
going to
the,
start construction until probably late next summer, early next fall.
and maybe by the time it starts construction, the worst of the pandemic will be over. But as long as you're building
Correct.
a new facility, it should have the sanitizing facilities available no matter what.
Yep.
When you go on your trip to the places in Wisconsin that already have these types of filters and such, 2 questions. Are you going to be running a separate sampling port for this facility to take samples for your virus studies? And are you also going to be able to run a separate study on the septic coming in for PFAS?
There will be a way to test the septage coming in for sure.
Okay.
And yeah, and we'll always, testing the water coming off this press, we're not going to be looking for the virus at all.
Okay.
Michigan Tech, their study is a little bit more in depth. They're actually looking at the virus as it travels through the treatment plant.
Mhm.
MSU and NMU are just looking at the virus at the, what's coming into the treatment plant, and then NMU with the lift stations. So,
Well, it's
and
something.
then, hopefully with the virus, hopefully starting to go away, we probably won't be testing it as much as we do now.
I just wanted to put that in the record to have it available because I can see, I really appreciated the work in the virus study, and I really appreciated the level of in-depth discussion about the sampling points and the rest, but this septage hauling station could spike the results for the entire plant because one person unloaded. Not to be funny, but one person unloaded something. And I just thought that would be useful information to have. But I know it's not the purpose of the septic hauling station. I just wanted to be aware going forward.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought that if, yeah, I see what you're talking about. Yeah, and the scientist part of it, the science part of it, what they're looking at here, they might be interested in that. And if they wanted us to collect septic samples for them, we would be open to doing that. We'd be happy to do it for them. But I think you're also looking at, that's going to be, by the time we start taking septic, we're talking almost probably a year from this spring.
I appreciate the fact that the world we live in will be different, but with the results that I read in that report about what they can determine from looking at the sewage, it's a breakthrough in science. And whatever you're going to be looking for in your debris, I'm going to use that phrase, it's not just going to be the virus. There's going to be requests from other parties to look for other things, because the ability to track this, especially in view of what we know about the pandemic, it's the first time I've seen these results, and they're just very, very useful information. I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, and we're always happy to help. So
Yes. Does anyone?
there's one other thing I'd like.
Oh, go ahead.
If you got any more questions, I wanted to touch on one more thing. One of the biggest problems we have as far as violations here at the treatment plant are because of our dissolved oxygen at the end of the plant.
Okay.
There's nothing we can do operationally. We've tried just pushing massive amounts of air to our aeration basins. That's the only way we can add oxygen, and it has little or no effect. Where we are getting our final DO is as the water goes over the weir in our chlorine contact tank, it drops down to whatever level the Carp River is at, and that cascading effect generally gives us enough oxygen to meet our permit. There's times in the spring where that river level comes up and we lose that cascading, and we've had some every year we have violations because of it. And also in the springtime is when we're also bringing back, challenging the plant more with side streams from the biosolids process. That's about the only operational control we have, is we have to really try to minimize that, but it happens. We also have problems in the late summer when the water temperature comes up. Warmer water doesn't hold DO as much as cold water. And even with that cascading effect, we've had some violations. So this has been on our radar a long time that we wanted to do an engineered fix for this. And we have excess air capacity here. And it would entail running a pipe out and running some headers in here into the aeration basin. So I've asked Donahue to go ahead and kind of design the system as part of this project, but this is going to be separate from the SRF project plan that we submitted to the state. So it's not going to be eligible for that money. So once we get some engineering estimates, I'll get in some dollar ideas, and I could probably have those for you maybe next month or the next meeting. This isn't going to go to bid till May. And again, I would like to bid it as an option. And then the board, once we get the whatever dollar figures it's going to cost, because there's going to be some cost savings involved. If we already have a contractor here with all the equipment tearing up the ground, for them to add this onto the project, there's going to be some savings there if we just hired a contractor to come in and just do this. So basically, I'd be coming to the board sometime probably in May or June before budget season, looking to see what your pleasure is as far as how we're going to fund it. We could either take it out of reserves and pay for it, which I think is the best way to go, would be my recommendation. Or we could just put it in as capital outlay in the budget, and that money would be available in October. So I just want to put that on the radar. Another issue we've had is this, it's hard to see, but this little white thing right here is a rooftop heating unit, air conditioning unit for just our electrical room. That's all it supplies. That thing is only 12 years old and it already has failed. It was designed to deal with all the, we have a whole, in order to meet permit here or code, we have to have so many air changes. So we have all kinds of air handlers on the roof, and all that air is getting exhausted. And this thing, the firebox just rusted right out, even though it was spec'd out to deal with that environment, it still failed. So I've asked Donahue to go ahead and see if there's an alternative we can heat this and cool this building with, because I got an estimate from a contractor just to replace this unit, just the unit itself, meeting the specs. He looked at 2 different manufacturers, and it was anywhere from $40,000 to $55,000 just for the unit. So I think we can find a way to heat this part of the electrical room with our heating system within the treatment plant, and then maybe putting one of those Mitsubishi outdoor air conditioning systems in to meet the cooling requirements in the summer. But again, I think, I'll get the pricing on that once they come up with the design for it. And I think it'd be smart to go ahead and include that as part of this project also, but that would need to be funded separately. And I think the replacement, that's why we have the replacement fund, is for items like this. So I just want to put that on the radar with you guys. We're talking months away before we get to that point. And I'll keep you guys updated as I start getting numbers on what it's going to cost to do this work and what they're looking at.
Pam, could you have the notes reflect there's the main septage project and 2 auxiliary projects that are related to it simply by virtue of equipment and personnel being available, and at the same time a fix that has to be made, so that we're aware that this, go ahead.
Yes, most certainly. I'm noting all of this, how they're separate of the actual SRF project, but want to be included.
Instead of calling it a septage project, Mickey, are you okay if we just call it the solids handling project?
I'm okay if we handle we call it the solids handling project. I would recommend that you break it into the main project and that you label the ancillary related projects, only because of the way you walked us through the discussion made perfect sense. But that if you weren't listening to this discussion, you would think it was one thing, and it actually is one major thing, and there's 2 other related projects that now's a good time to do at the same time.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Agreed.
Could
all right,
we
that's
have,
all I had.
Mark, I have one more question before I open it to the other board members.
Sure.
Just please promise us no Orangeburg pipe ever in the plant?
Yeah, no, they don't use that anymore.
Okay, so there's no exception for any of this work. There will be no new Orangeburg pipe installed.
No, there will not be no Orangeburg. I don't even think they use it anymore. I don't even know if they make it anymore.
Thank you, Pam. Could you?
Dan's,
It hasn't been made for 30 years at least.
Great.
okay.
All right, does any other board member have any questions, comments, or concerns? Harold?
I'm just curious to, did they give you any kind of rough estimate for capital costs in that air handling system? For the
No, I have not seen any
I mean,
initial numbers yet.
It's just connecting with a control valve of some type and then.
Yeah, they'd put yep, and running a new line out, it would include the diffusers, and then we would also include an online DO analyzer. So we can always have instantaneous, we can basically set an alarm off that it'll alarm if it hits a certain level.
So have they?
And then we can also use the DO analyzer to control the amount of air going to the contact tank, so we're not wasting energy.
Right.
Same concept that we use for our aeration basins.
Have they looked at just maybe putting the pipe in the outlet or outfall channel? I mean, in the.
Yeah, we looked at that, Harold, but it's that channel is only where the Carp River is, where it cascades down to. That thing's only like 3 feet deep.
Yeah.
So there's concerns that there's just not enough head there to allow the oxygen to,
Dissolve, yeah.
get into the water.
Yep.
So by putting it in the contact tank, you're a lot deeper.
Yep.
There'll be a lot more contact with the water as it travels up.
That's the only question I had.
Joe,
Okay.
do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Leonard, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay, Mark, I think this part of the agenda is over. Okay?
Dan's got to take off in a minute, so if we could jump into his report, maybe.
Yes,
That's
please.
next on the.
Dan, could you please do the operations report?
Sure. All right. Permit compliance for last month. No permit violations occurred since the last advisory board meeting. And as far as plant notes go, we continue to operate under the city's COVID-19 plan, following the city's safety protocols. We continue gathering weekly samples of our plant influent and solids from various stages of the treatment process to be analyzed by Michigan State University, Michigan Tech, and NMU for the presence of COVID-19 viral material. We're also sampling our 4 major lift stations once a week, giving those samples to NMU. As Margaret mentioned earlier, we had to terminate an employee, so once again 2 operators short of full staff. And like Mark said, we have a candidate that's starting on the 4th of January, and the second one is getting staged for a physical. So that's hopeful. Recently, we had some issues with one of our cogen units. It was backfiring through the intake manifold. And it turned out one of the 3 cylinder heads had gone bad. The burnt exhaust valve, you can see in the copy of the minutes there, got an arrow pointing at the bad exhaust valve. So Kraft came and did the repairs for us. And this type of repair is kind of like a scheduled thing, but this one happened a lot earlier than we expected at significant expense. Mark could elaborate on that if you'd like.
Yeah, we're going to touch on that later in the agenda
Okay.
under new business, so we don't have to get too detailed.
All right. Sounds good to me. A little side note, we had ordered a new filter press feed pump back in August, I think it was, and it arrived last week or 2 weeks ago. So once staffing permits, we can install that. Then evaluate the old one and see if it's worth rebuilding or needs to be replaced. And Mark, isn't there something with this solids handling project where they might be putting in a second pump? Have we gotten to that decision point yet? Or
Yeah, if we can fit it into the budget, we're gonna put a second one of those pumps in, just for redundancy purposes.
Okay. Industrial wastewater acceptance, truck waste, Wisconsin Energy's leachate. We received 127,000 gallons for a total of $3,810. Fabic Cat Repair Shop, 1,300 gallons for $250. LS&I Repair Shop, 9,900 gallons for $1,287 for a total of $5,447. And maintenance management, due to staffing, corrective maintenance has been kind of pushed to the back burner. But we're going to be able to catch up with that stuff eventually here. We're still waiting on parts for one of our recirculation pumps for digester 1. And let's see, digester mixing pump for digester 1. We finished that repair yesterday. That was pretty nice. Get that finally out of the way. And just an example of another one of the projects that's on the back burner is a couple boiler booster pumps that have seals that are leaking. So it's a matter of having the manpower to take care of the work.
I have a question. I've been
Sure.
reading online about people getting packages this time of year, and when they open it up, it's not what they ordered. Do you have an internal quality control procedure at your plant when you get a package and you think it's a pump or a seal or something, that someone who checks it in opens the box and makes sure that what's supposed to be in there is actually there?
Yeah, well, in a way, I mean, we have a small enough staff here where, generally speaking, most folks know what's going on. And if a part shows up and it's not right, it's obvious it's not. We're dealing with that now with our online phosphorus meter that we have here. A major component of it broke last week. And the spare that the company had sent us when we first bought the unit wasn't the right piece. So they immediately shipped us what they said was the correct replacement part, and it turned out it wasn't correct either. And I notified the company, and within an hour or two, the vice president told me he was going to take care of it. So I guess that's an example of quality control. I mean, when a part shows up and it's not right, we just contact the company, and it's not a whole lot of stuff coming in. But when we do order stuff, we try to do our best to ensure it's the right part.
Pam,
Yeah,
does
we're
there,
not, a big enough department like Public Works where, they get so much stuff coming in almost daily that, it's pretty straightforward. We're expecting stuff and it shows up, we open it up, and if it's not what we expect, then we deal with it.
okay.
It
Pam,
doesn't happen often.
do you keep a record of those suppliers that ship things that turn out to not be what they said it was? So that there's like a database, so when you're dealing with a supplier, you know their track record?
Honestly, it happens so infrequently that no, we don't
Okay.
have never felt the need to do that. Usually it's just a
Alright.
simple mistake.
Okay,
It's rare that it happens.
that's really good to hear. Does anybody have any comments on the operations report? Harold,
No,
Joe,
No.
Leonard?
No.
No, I like the, here's my comment. I like the maintenance management report included, even if there's no progress shown in a certain timeline. I like it included because having a list like that gives you a focal point for what's going on. That's all I had on the operations report if Dan has to be excused.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Hey, Dan.
Good luck in your meeting.
Adios. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, the next item of business is the COVID-19 discussion. And Mark, are you going to take the lead on that?
Yeah, no, we keep talking about that. We've been active in doing this study. We started way back in April.
Yeah.
When it first came out with MSU. And I've included their latest report. We send in a sample weekly there. You can kind of see that through the summer. This is on page 4 of that report. Was detected early in the wastewater treatment stream. Most of summer it was not. And then we started to see it in the fall when NMU came back. We had a pretty dramatic spike there on October 7th. And that was just about a week before the outbreak happened at the prison. As you know, it's been in the news, you know, the numbers have been up in the community. And now you're starting to see that they're starting to go down. So that's a good sign. That's what we're seeing. We've also been asked through Michigan Tech, through NMU. So we're going to do whatever we can to help out the medical community. If we can do something to help them do their job better, we're going to do it. So, you know, there was just that press release yesterday. TV6 did do a story on it, and they've done a story on NMU testing our wastewater here in town. I did let the manager and his secretary know that if there's any questions, if they wanted any follow-up, to get a hold of me. And, you know, Margaret, I know you like to, your heart's in the right place. You want to let everybody know what we're doing and, you know, how great this stuff is. But I think if the city put out a PSA for every time a department did something good, it would just be a constant stream of PSAs. And, you know, I kind of look at using a PSA to educate the public, like, hey, we're going to shut a road down. You know, we have an issue with our water supply. We want you to use less water. You know, as far as this feel good stuff, me personally, I'm just not that type of person that I want that to be in the spotlight, first of all. And also, I don't know if it reflects very well on me with my other department heads. If we start putting PSAs out there like that, you know, that Mark's trying to make himself look good just to be that guy. And that's not the guy I am. So that's why I'm so reluctant, you know, and I respect where you're coming from with that. But I think we need to use these PSAs more as an educational tool. If the Mining Journal or TV6 called me up and they want to do a story, we're always going to do the story. You know, we're always here available to the public. That's kind of my 2 cents on it, you know, and I'll respect the wishes of the board for sure.
I can explain where I'm coming from. Yesterday, WLUC TV6 did a comprehensive report on these results. It was earth-shakingly new because this type of testing of wastewater streams for virus is not the norm. And the fact is, I did want us to let the public know that Marquette's wastewater had been tested, not just by faraway universities, but by Northern as well. So it was a 2-for. I was extremely pleased at the story on WLUC TV6 yesterday because it was very comprehensive and it pointed out the local institutions that have been involved. So my request for a PSA has been answered by that news story. The fact is, this is state of the art, and I'm personally convinced that you're going to be asked to test for this virus this year, and next year you're going to be asked to test for other things. And I read the report, and it's good science, well done. And for those of you who don't know me, Joe, Leonard, and Harold, I'm a chemical engineer by training and a patent attorney. So when I get a report like that, it's like meat to a hungry tiger. I read it and I hold it up to the light and I look at it, and the clear trend of what it shows reflects what the Marquette County Health Department has been able to say. And the only thing I can say about the PSA is I will continue to suggest them when I think there's a feel-good situation. And Mark, you'll continue to provide your advice and guidance on it. That's what we're supposed to do. It's not a direct order, it's a suggestion. And the fact
I
is,
realize that.
in this type of situation, to let the public know, which TV6 did yesterday, just how much work is being done at your facility in connection with these world famous universities is more than feel good. It's the step forward we need. So that's why I fuss about it so much. And I was very glad to see it. Joe, Leonard, Harold, did you get a chance to look at the data at all? Did any of it strike you as being, did you get as excited about it as I did?
No,
It really is good information. They're talking about 3 different markers that they're looking for, and their testing is being developed to see if they just need to look for 1 marker versus the 3. And the fact is, now that they've proven under combat conditions, they can find it. I just have a vision of wastewater being looked at for a number of different things. So I'm not concerned about the PSA anymore at all. That's been addressed. This is really good information. And Mark, when you do get in front of the commission next year, please have a slide on this, because it
Yeah,
hits
yeah, I
so
will be
many of
covering it.
their hot buttons in terms of local, development, scientific advancement, and partnering with Northern.
The weekly reports that we receive here at the plant they're always forwarded to the commission through Mike.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Mark on the COVID-19 discussion? Harold?
Yeah, I agree with Mark's philosophy on this.
Okay,
We're a wastewater plant. I mean, we've done sampling, but we haven't done any of the testing. So we're not really involved with the results or the method of testing. So, I mean, we are a sampling location. That's pretty much it as far as I'm concerned.
Joe, do you have any questions, comments from Mark?
Just want to reiterate Mark's point of view that too many PSAs is definitely kind of dulls the effect you're looking for. So just keep it to the essential stuff, I would say.
Okay, Leonard?
I have nothing.
And for the record, Pam, if you could, in your spare time, if you could look up the last time there was a PSA from the wastewater plant and just casually bring that up at the next meeting, I'd be interested. I don't think I've ever
The
seen
last
it.
one we put out, I can tell you for sure, because we don't put them out very often,
Yeah,
this is outside of the fence, but it was closing Lakeshore Boulevard at Baraga Street to
okay,
have a contractor clean out the wet well,
all right.
which happens about every other year.
Okay, I think that's the end of the COVID-19 discussion. What's under old business?
I honestly had nothing under there, but we just kept that bullet there. If there's something else.
Harold, do you have any old business that hasn't been addressed?
Oh, yeah, we left it there.
Nope.
That's kind of one of those bullets we just always have.
And Leonard and Joe, do you have any notes on old business you want addressed?
No.
Pam, please adjust the notes to reflect that there's no old business to discuss this week.
I have one question under old business, I guess. What's the status of our grant application, Mark, or the loan and the grant? What's the next-
Status or as
what's
of
the
this,
next?
as of,
Go ahead.
okay, the next step is, I got the milestone schedule right here. Basically, the Eagle still has to review the whole submittal we submitted, come back with their comments, and then they're supposed to come up with, they're supposed to have their comments on the draft plans and specifications, submittal of, then we come back and whatever questions they have, we do our final submittal. And then we have to do our detailed engineering drawings and all that to them, and they're gonna have their time to go ahead and comment on that. And then the financial part of it starts in May. I've been in touch with Gary on, our bond counsel and all that stuff.
Okay.
And he assured me that they can move quickly on that.
Okay.
So we'll probably start looking in February, March to start that process, get that all teed up. But there's a whole bunch of steps to go right now where it's all pretty much in Eagle's hands.
Okay.
And the date for publishing the bid advertisement is May 28th. Opening of bids would be June 28th. And then the resolution to accept it by the board and the city commission would be July 7th. And the approval would come August 8th. So we could theoretically start breaking ground after that.
Alrighty.
That's one thing about this SRF program. It's a great program, but there's a lot of steps to it.
I love
And
it.
it's, Kurt had a lot of experience on it and he did his best to teach me, but it's still been a teaching process. Kurt's always been there for me anytime I've had any questions. Donahue's been through this before, and obviously Gary is top notch. He's been a big help to me also. So I don't anticipate any any problems.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we're on schedule with everything. So that was, that's
We
all I
are.
have.
Okay, that's the end of old business. We're approaching 11 a.m. I believe it was John Cagney who always had to leave at 11. Does anyone else have to leave at 11?
I gotta leave at 11:05.
All right, let's move ahead then. I'm taking everything seriously. New business, future PFAS impact. Mark, you shared this with me. Please share it with the board.
Yeah, we had our UP Administrators Conference earlier this month. And for the first time, I've heard directly from Eagle that PFAS, there's going to be impacts here within the fence. Any treatment plant in the state that takes any sort of trucked industrial waste, any sort of leachate, is going to have either an industrial pretreatment program, which is very expensive and time consuming, or what we already have, we're lucky in this regard, is our maximum allowable headwork study. We're going to have to update that study, and we're going to have to add PFAS to it. And we're going to have to start testing for PFAS and all that waste that comes in. Now, I don't anticipate what's coming from LS&I to be an issue. The little bit we get from Fabic, our leachate is coming from We Energy's landfill, and it's coal ash. It's PFAS is not expected to be in it. So I think we'll be in good shape, but this is the first time the state is starting to push this stuff. This is going to be coming out, I believe, next year. So they're trying to prepare. There's a lot of the smaller communities, treatment plants in the UP that take landfill leachate. They know PFAS is in the landfill leachate. And at the same time, they don't want these treatment plants just to cut off treatment for it because there's really no backup. So I just wanted to bring it up to the board that I'll probably be coming to you guys asking for some money. I'm hoping to stretch it out into the next budget to reanalyze our mall and add PFAS. And we'll work with the same consultant that we worked with to bring up the first one. First one's worked really well for us, but it has been some time, and it probably would be a good time to update it. Well, it's going to be forced on us. Just call it what it is.
The expense that we're going to see is we'll be sampling and testing.
We'll pass that on to the testing part. We'll pass that on to we'll mandate that whoever wants to bring us that material, that they'll have to test it first.
Oh.
And if they spend the money to test it and it doesn't fit into our mall, then we would just refuse that we'll take it. That's just the chance they take. Right now, we do make them do tests for all the other metals and organics, inorganics, I should say, in our that are in our mall. And that test is usually, $200 to $300 for all the different components that they test for, depending on what lab you use. But we make them, we basically collect the sample and we ship it out to make sure that, they're not pulling a fast one on us, and they can use whatever accredited lab they want. And then we get the results back and I feed them into a program. And it basically tells me how much of that material I can take a day. I've gotten a lot of times where I get stuff submitted to me for, 100 gallons of this or 100 gallons of that, petroleum impacted water, and they don't test for all the requirements in our mall, and I just refuse it. Even though a lot of this stuff wouldn't be expected in that type of waste, just to protect the treatment plant, we just refuse it.
And this is a milestone in the history of the wastewater plant because it's the first time PFAS has basically come inside the fence, so to speak.
Yeah, well, for here at the treatment plant in the state itself, this has been on the state's radar for a long time, and that's why I've been talking about it for a long time, because when something's on their radar, it generally gets put on our radar. It puts on for us to deal with it. Right now, they're really focused on the plants that have like major problems with PFAS, and they're mostly plants that had metal, not stamping, but metal plating factories, that sort of stuff. They're dealing with it here just in the UP, KI Sawyer, all because of an AFFF firefighting truck It was their backup firefighting truck for the airport, was leaking. And that was enough that PFAS that leaked out of that AFFF from that fire truck got into their treatment plant, contaminated their biosolids to the point that they cannot land apply it. So now they're looking at options. They have like I think it's 500,000 gallons of biosolids liquid that they need to dispose of. And whether that's, probably running it through a press, landfilling it, incinerating it, I don't know, but it's going to be a pretty good expense for them. Luckily, we don't have a lot of industry. Some people say that's a bad thing, obviously, for jobs and stuff. But from a treatment plant perspective, we don't have a lot of industry that has a lot of impact on us. And we have tested for PFAS. We did find it, but it was in small numbers, nothing that would impact any sort of any issues with the state. We test our drinking water, I believe it's monthly. I have to double check on that, but we've never had a detection in our drinking water. So we're in relatively good shape here. But I do, I get concerned about if the tanker truck flips over and, the fire department goes there, they can still use AFFF if it's a life-saving situation, which obviously that would be. And they're supposed to try to mitigate and collect that material before it gets into any sewer systems or stormwater systems because of that issue.
There's a rule in the state of Michigan now that when a firefighting agency has to use PFAS for any reason, it has to be reported to the state within 24 hours of that use. It's one of those regulations where you're right, they haven't pulled PFAS firefighting foam because they might need it. They don't have a replacement ready for it. Okay,
Right.
Does anyone have any questions on the future PFAS impact for material coming into the plant? Joe, Leonard, Harold? Okay. Could you move on now to cogen repair?
Yep. As you know, we have the cogen units. They're pretty sophisticated pieces of equipment and they run 24/7. They do save us a lot of electrical costs. I had got the board to approve and the city commission to approve in the budget. What we anticipated that would cover the maintenance and repair of these engines for the next year. And that was $35,000. Unfortunately, like Dan said, the engine started to run badly. Ended up that valve was burnt. I did talk to the manufacturer and they said, sometimes that happens. They did say that they had passed on to me and Kurt that we could actually expect to have this done this year. That was never conveyed to me. I talked to Kurt and he does not remember that ever being conveyed to him. But they did say that based on the hours these things have been running, generally anywhere from 10 to 16,000 hours, you can expect to have to rebuild the top end of the engine. So because this engine was down, I had approval to spend up to $35,000 for repair and maintenance. I talked to the manager on how he wanted to handle this because we had approval. I can go ahead and fix the engine and get it back up and running. But eventually we're going to reach the point where my budget's going to be used up. So he wanted to just take this and enough money also to do the second engine. We're not going to do it unless we have to. We're going to keep running it until it starts acting up. And take that to the commission for approval, which I did last Tuesday. But I did go ahead and get that engine back up and running. We paid the expense to do that. And we've saved, I think somewhere along the lines of like $1,700 in electrical costs by getting it back up and running right away. So it's unfortunate. Obviously, we're going to have some better communication with the manufacturer. Me and Kurt had been going off of kind of a 5-year plan for these engines. And this was part of the plan that we knew it was an expense that would need to get done. And eventually there's going to be a bigger expense when the whole engine needs to be replaced, or not replaced, excuse me, rebuilt, with all new cylinders and cylinder liners and all that good stuff. but that should be another year or two out. It's something that it had to be done. If we didn't do it, then we're paying for an engine to sit there and do nothing. We collect no heat off of it, and we collect no electrical savings off of it.
Any comments by any board member on that? Leonard, Joe, I can see no's. Harold, how about you? Oh, Joe, excuse me.
Yep, just wondering, Mark, the time period for resolution to get the cogen fully operational and everything working the way it's supposed to function. And do we have a cost associated with that for a 5-year plan, something like that? How does that work?
Yeah, I don't have it at the top of my head, but basically the basic services for a year for these two engines, we figured $35,000 was enough money to cover the cost to maintain these engines. The oil changes, they're requiring an oil change we've bumped it out now, I think, to like every 5 weeks, every 1,200 hours. I'd have to do the numbers in my head fast enough. We were doing them every 1,000 hours, but based on the engine oil analysis, we determined that we could bump that out to 1,200 hours. These engines both have massive reservoirs. I think they hold something in the order of like 45 gallons of oil, and it's an expensive oil. So each maintenance time they come up here to service the engines just to change the oil is like $3,000 with travel and everything. But they're not just doing that. They're also, going through the engine, testing the compression, adjusting valves. And these things are designed to run on 2 different gases. And our biogas isn't consistent like natural gas. It changes. So it's pretty complicated on how, if it's not dialed in just right, the engine runs roughly. So it's important that they do that work. And then as far as the cost, as far as the 5-year plan, we knew that we thought it was another year out. I honestly did too. The 3 years that top end would need to be done, and it was going to be an expensive repair. The cylinder heads would need to be repaired. And then all the coolant would have to be changed, and oil and everything else. A bunch of gaskets would need to be replaced. And then I think it was, depending on the runtime and how long it lasted, 4 to 5 years was the thought as far as rebuilding the whole engines themselves. They would need to be rebuilt. But I can dig that up and I can get that information to the board members for sure. One of the issues that we've kind of had with this manufacturer Kraft, they basically get these engines built over in Czechoslovakia, and they redesigned the units that we have. We're the first ones in the country. So we're kind of the guinea pigs, so to speak. And we went through a lot of teething problems, let's just say, getting them up and running. And we're lucky that Kraft has a service center in Gaylord. And dealing with them, if we have an issue here and I pick up the phone, call them. If I get a voicemail or something, they usually they get back to me within 5 minutes, and they'll have somebody jump in a truck and come up here and fix the problem. So they've been fantastic. But yeah, there is an expense. They're expensive pieces of equipment. Talking to other communities that have them, it's a commitment to keep them up and running. Yeah, the positive there is that we're saving about 75% on our electrical bill every year. And our biggest energy use here is electricity.
Has there been any follow-up with Kraft in terms of documenting? Our understanding was this wasn't going to have to happen for another year. We've been told by you that you conveyed to us that it was going to happen sooner in the future.
No, he said it was in a verbal conversation that he had.
Could you ask him in the future to make all estimates of equipment life in writing?
Yeah, I will not make that mistake again. I'll definitely.
I don't think it was.
I'm gonna have him give me a report on, okay, what do you expect?
Yes.
For us next year on our expenses to maintain these things.
I think.
Yeah, for being a new manager, this was embarrassing for me to have to go to the city commission and then come to you guys also and say, hey, this was missed. whether it was not conveyed to us, whether somebody just didn't understand it when it was said to them, I don't know. But I
My
know
own-
that for sure it was never said to me.
My only thoughts on that is when it's a miscommunication involving this much money, it's perfectly reasonable for the party that bought the equipment to insist that there would never again be any surprises. And written communications do that. And with all due
But-
respect.
You got to remember too, that these are mechanical pieces of equipment and things break. So they can project out that, hey, you know, this is what we usually see. And that's what they're giving us as far as their estimates go. This is what we usually see. In order to do these top ends, it's somewhere between 10,000 and 16,000 hours. So they can give us a best guess, but that these things can break, you know,
Mark?
just like any other piece of equipment in our industry.
I hear Harold.
Yeah, I think, Mark, what you've done is good. I mean, you've taken care of a problem as soon as you can. So especially if it's affecting the monetary intake of the plant.
I believe that fixing this piece
Yeah,
of
these-
equipment was good.
Yeah, I'd like to, just to make clear that each engine saves us about $240 a day in electricity. Now, obviously, the second engine is running on natural gas, so there's an expense there. I think it was like $100 and some a day in natural gas costs. And that's what we're hoping to bring down by creating more biogas.
Mark, are
So
you,
there is a significant savings there.
one more comment and I have to leave. Are you keeping track of all the expenses related to these engines for future?
Yes, we have a special line item in our budget.
Okay,
So anytime we spend any money on these engines or the gas conditioning skid related to this process, that is all documented
Good.
in a special account.
I've got to run.
So we can look at the end of the year and say, this is what we spent to maintain these engines, and I can come to the board and show you that this is how much electricity savings we had. And then also there's gonna be the natural gas. It's gonna go up. We knew that. So
Is there anything else that is going to need a quorum? I'm going to have to leave.
There's no more votes
I-
scheduled, Harold, except for the one to adjourn, and I think we can do that by voice vote.
Okay, well, I've got to leave, so.
Thank you, Harold.
still-
Have a happy holidays.
Okay, you too.
All right,
and I think we only need 3 for a quorum.
okay. All right, item 9, public comment. Pam, is there anybody, public comment? Anyone called in, emailed in?
Nothing, no,
See Randy Rotari if he's got anybody. He's the host.
Nope, nothing.
Okay.
Just
Randy.
out of the top of my head, I've been on the board for over 1.5 years now. I don't think we've ever had public comment. Does anybody remember
No.
public comment?
I've never heard of any.
Okay,
Well, I take that back. We have had public attend the meeting before.
okay,
So yes, we have had public comment. It's pretty rare though.
okay. Then we're on to board comment. Harold has left. Leonard,
I have nothing.
nothing? Joe?
Nothing.
I'm gonna use my 2 minutes. The PFAS comment where it's coming inside the plant is a long-term consideration. I monitor PFAS in the local media because the amount of times it's mentioned usually means more and more problems are coming to people's attention. There were 2 media reports of note. Number 1, the Wisconsin state law is passing now on PFAS in drinking water for the entire state. They've identified sites on the Upper Peninsula Wisconsin border that have issues with PFAS in their water. And number 2, how many of us have read the National Geographic report on the Great Lakes? Anybody? Okay. One of the people they interviewed was a Native American who was hunting moose. And the article made a big fuss about how when he opened up the moose to field dress it, the liver of the moose was disintegrating, indicating that the moose had been exposed to some sort of toxin. And this has nothing to do with behind the plant. It has nothing to do with this. It's just a question of PFAS is now showing up in all sorts of media. And also in my line of work as an attorney, there's ads going out. Are you a firefighter? Have you been exposed to PFAS? You may have litigation. So it's just an ongoing, I pay attention to this. And now that the plant has been asked to look for it in incoming materials, I don't expect it to go away in the near future. And the other board comment I had was excellent work on the virus study. In all reality, all of the good work in life seems to happen behind the scenes with little vials of little samples going everywhere in the middle of the night. But the fact that Marquette was part of this study, the fact that we partnered with a local university is a high point of the year. It really is. And that's all I had for board comment. Can I have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make that motion.
Joe, can you second that?
Second.
All in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Anyone negative? The meeting is adjourned at 11:17 a.m. Thank you, everybody,
Thanks,
for
Vicki.
participating.
Thanks, Randy.
Thanks.
You
folks.
guys,
Thanks. Everybody have a safe, happy holiday.
you too.
All right, bye.